Magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest live action of all? What's mirror? You're I'm kind of losing you, mirror. Hold on a second. Hold hold on. Hi everyone, welcome to Rebel Geek, my podcast and YouTube channel where I cover the feminine phenomenon, as I like to call it, or what others may call women-centered media or feminine or female-centered media. I'm your host, Belle Diepa, and whoo, oh my goodness, after almost 2 years of controversy, of so much waiting and speculation, Snow White has finally come out. I did get the chance to go see it. I saw a preview of it on Tuesday, March 18th. It was a D23 event. It was very sweet. I will say I am a little jealous though, because I saw some of the other AMC D23 events and they really showed up for them. Like our D23 event, it really wasn't much. We waited outside for an hour in the cold. And then after an hour of literally becoming sneezy, they finally let us in. And when I checked in, they had these tickets, but it was only for the kids. Only the kids get the special tickets and the swag, which made me a little sad. But I understand it's for the children's. And then we went in. I got my popcorn, and I also got a really cute Snow White cup, which I will show a photo here. It was really adorable. It was a really I was surprised that I liked the movie as much as I liked it. And I know a lot of people have come in with this movie with a lot of prejudgment, but just I have a lot of thoughts and I want to share my thoughts with you, the internet, so that you can kind of understand where I'm coming from and what is going on. So, Snow White was first announced, really, it started production in 2016. We really learned about the process of the movie back 4 years ago, around 2021, when Rachel Zegler was announced that she would be playing Snow White. And ever since then, people just lost their minds. I don't know. I don't know. It's really interesting to see the discourse. And yeah, I don't get why people are upset, because this movie is 87 years old and it's not the 1937 film. It is what they call a reimagining. This is a new Snow White for a new audience, a new generation. So let's get back. Let's just dive into it. Okay. So if you didn't know, Snow White was originally, the animated film was released in 1937, and the story is loosely based on the fairy tale by the Brothers Grimm in Germany. Now, there are roughly 400, let me repeat that, 400, 400 different versions of Snow White. So, and the Brothers Grimm is not the only version or the first version. The first version, they believe it was from a Malay poem. So there's a lot of research, but Snow White and the story of Snow White is a very well-known folkloric trope and story. And the thing about fables and fairy tales, and why I love exploring fables, and really this channel is kind of slowly becoming a fable centered and fairy tale centered channel, which is very funny. But fables are everlasting and ever evolving because They serve as a tool, as a method to teach mostly children an important lesson about life and about the world. And Snow White and the way that movies go forward. Yes, movie companies are trying to make money, but really the ones that really touch us and resonate with us are stories that speak to us and that teach us something about ourselves, about our world. So, right off the bat, yes, the 1937 film is literally what Disney was built upon. If you go down to the studios in Burbank, you will see it's built, they literally have the seven dwarves kind of holding up the entire building because that's what Disney was built on, which I think is really, really cool. But this reimagining of Snow White is a full-on musical. So they do make reference to two of the more famous songs, Hi Ho and Whistle While You Work. And they make reference. So Hi Ho and Whistle While You Work, it's full out sung choreography, the whole shebang. A famous song that they make reference to in the movie, and this is a little bit of spoilers, is Someday My Prince Will Come, because there's a moment where Rachel is humming the song, which is lovely. But they also gave us a lot, so many. The soundtrack is really beautiful. And so the soundtrack in the film includes new songs by EGOT winning songwriting partners, Benji. I have to look at my notes. Sorry. Songwriting writers Benji Pasek and Justin Paul from The Greatest Showman and Dear Evan Hansen. Like I said, these are EGOT winners. And if you don't know what an EGOT winner, it is a person who has won an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. So yeah, they did that. So of course, they brought in the Disney magic. And I feel like if you've seen The Greatest Showman, which by the way, The Greatest Showman is about to go on to Broadway. They made a Broadway adaptation of the movie musical. So I feel like when you watch something like Snow White and you listen to the music, it's like, yeah, we know where we're going with this. We understand that we're in for a Broadway style musical. And when you have a Broadway style musical, you need a Broadway style actress. Enter Rachel Zegler. Rachel Zegler is honestly, I feel like so many of the reviews that I have read have really applauded Zegler's performance, and she deserves it. Girl deserves her flowers. Girl can sing. Like, she is 5'2", and she is tiny, 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 and she has a set of pipes. She really came on the scene a few years ago playing Maria in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. And just so you know, when she auditioned for Snow White, she was not known at all. However, Steven Spielberg kind of gave her a letter of recommendation, which, I mean, when Steven Spielberg recommends you, why wouldn't you get the job? Hello. But Rachel Zegler and her use of the music is just, it's really lovely. The songs that they have added specifically for Snow White, Waiting on a Wish, is your quintessential princess song. And here's the thing, and maybe I'll make another video about this, so you guys let me know if you want this. I love Disney princesses, but I think one of the things that I love, love, love about Disney princesses is that they are all women who are living in a situation that they don't want to live in, and who wish and pine and dream of something more. And you have that in all of the princesses. And I feel like for them to give Snow White her own wishing song, Waiting on a Wish, which is about her wanting to be a better person. I mean, I am not 20 something years old anymore, but it was a song that still like spoke to me and inspired me, and being like, dang man, like I feel this. I know what it feels like to be like, I want to be the best version of myself. I want to be the version of myself that everyone keeps telling me that I can be or that I should be, but that I'm not. So honestly, Zegler, she sparkles and she enchants as Snow White, and she strikes a balance between being brave and finding her way through the darkness with kindness, which I think is really, really important. And I do also think that for the first time in a long time, for the first time in forever, Disney has fixed its princess problem and its girl boss problem, because this Snow White, she is so truthful to the character while also being updated for the modern audience. Like, at no point does Snow White take up arms. Yes, there's the moments that they have between her and Jonathan, who is also the prince, and we'll talk about Jonathan in a little bit, but the character of Jonathan, played by Andrew Burnap, they they have chemistry, but they fall in love in a very natural way. And there is a moment that Snow White saves the prince, and the prince, of course, saves Snow White. So Disney did not rob us of the romance, which I love. Like, this romantic story actually is way better than the 1937 story. And I'm sorry if you guys think that's blasphemy, but look, guys, the 1937 prince didn't even have a name. He did not have a name. If he did, please let me know in the comments what his name is, because I'm pretty sure that his name is just Prince, because Prince Charming is Cinderella's prince. This dude was literally just named Prince, and he just shows up when she's wishing in the well, and then he leaves and does not show up again up until the very end of the movie to kiss her. So it's very like, and Disney actually had a really hard time for the 1937 film to understand and write their love story. In fact, in the 1937 film, in the book by J.B. Kaufman called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, The Creation of a Classic, Disney says that he delayed working on the scene between the meeting of Snow White and the prince because he knew that it would be the most difficult. And even though they oversimplified that scene, it was still really difficult. And at first, Disney wanted the meeting to include flirtatious banter, similar to what, quote, live action romantic comedies had at the time. But because this was the first animated feature film, that was really time consuming, really difficult. They couldn't make it too clunky. So in the 1937 film, we didn't really get the development of that relationship between Snow White and the prince. But in this film, we do. And the prince has a name, and the prince has a personality, and you actually fall in love with the prince, which makes the romance so much more better. And that's the other thing that I really loved and enjoyed about this movie, is that they gave us full on Snow White. Snow White gets poisoned by an apple, and she gets kissed by her prince, who brings her back to life. They did not skimp on that. And the way that scene, like the way that they set it up, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. I was like, wow, they did such a great job in this scene, because oh my God, I don't want to get emotional, but it's just like, I love it so much. When you watch the 1937 film, and it is one of the best scenes in the 1937 film as well. The animals go and they let the dwarves know that Snow White's in trouble. And then they're like, oh my God, we have to come. We have to go home. We have to save her. And of course, the dwarves show up too late. And in this film, they give us that. They gave us the whole thing, which I thought was just like, wow, thank you. And we get not just one, but two romantic songs. We get a song of flirtatious banter, Princess Problems, and then we have A Hand in a Hand, which is so, it's literally just so beautiful and so romantic. And I think that the kids of today are going to watch this movie and they're going to fall in love with this movie in the same way that kids back in like 2011, 2010, when they saw Tangled, fell in love with Rapunzel and Flynn. Like I could see that happening because it's a very similar vibe. But the movie wasn't perfect. So here are some of my critiques. As much as I love Gal Gadot, she's gorgeous. Like one of the most beautiful women in the world. Absolutely. If the role of the Wicked Queen was just to be visually stunning, she would be great. But the way that she was performed was very two-dimensional. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I know, and everyone might not feel that way, but I felt that way. I felt like Gal Gadot's performance, she she really looked the part, but like she didn't really understand it. And I don't know if this is a Gal Gadot acting thing or if it was that's how the part was written, because we're not fed a reason as to why she's wicked aside from being absolutely vain. And I mean, it's very hard to make a two-dimensional character like three-dimensional, but that's kind of what they did. And I understand they probably were trying to simplify it. She's just wicked for wicked's sake. She's just vain and wicked. And I think that there's actually a lot more depth when we look at the Wicked Queen. I definitely want to watch the movie again and see from the Wicked Queen's point of view if I can get some more, if I'm just kind of, but first reactions, I was not the biggest fan of the Wicked Queen. I'm sorry if y'all love Godot's Queen. Also, and Gal has said this. She said this in an interview with Jimmy Fallon. She's not the best singer. And even though they gave her a song, I feel like when you're in a musical with other great singers, like Rachel can sing very well, Andrew can sing very well. When you are in a movie with other strong singers and you're not a strong singer and you get like this really rich villain song, which yes, they gave us a villain song, it's not the best. But when you have a really good and really rich villain song and you don't have the vocal range, like imagine Scars Be Prepared not sung with Jeremy Irons' delicious vibrato, it wouldn't be the same. And I feel like this song, I could tell it's a good song, but Gal does not have the vocal chops to carry it. And after all, let's remember, this is a musical. This Snow White is a full-on Broadway musical. And in fact, as I was listening to the music, I was like, this would be really good if it was adapted onto stage as well. I don't know if Disney has plans for that. Maybe in the future. I don't know. But it could very well be adapted for stage because the music is that good and interesting. But I really would love to see someone who has the vocal prowess for All Is Fair to sing it like with vibrato, with feeling. Now, the other thing that was odd, but I got it, I understood, was the character of the seven magical men who previously was the seven dwarves. And once I saw the movie, I understood the choice. And look, y'all, you might not agree with the choice. You might think, I don't like this, I want this. That's fine. That's your opinion. But I really get it, and I don't think that Disney was wrong. So in the original story and in the original movie of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the dwarves are not humanized. The dwarves are treated not as humans. And that is and has been a problem with representation of people with dwarfism in the world. And I think that what they did with this movie is they turned, instead of seven dwarves, it was seven magical men, seven magical beings who are not human. So they're kind of more like gnomes, which is why they were animated. And at first it's a little jarring, but then you get used to it and you're like, okay, I get it. They're animated. They're animated for a reason. And they really drove this point home when among the humans they had a person with dwarfism. So basically people with dwarfism are humans, are people, and they have human rights. And then the people who live in the forest, they are magical beings. They're not part of the human world necessarily. So the forest is a magical place, which I like too, because again, it goes into the fairy taleness of it all. Like, remember, this is a musical. We're suspending our disbelief. This is a movie for freaking kids. Like, we want to teach kids to be fair and kind and brave and true and to treat all people as people. Those are very good, strong family values. And my final thoughts going back into our prince. So, our Prince Charming is now a thief. I don't even know if he's a prince. I don't know. Maybe he was a former prince, but he seems to be from the kingdom, and he kind of fights in the name of the king. So he has a lot of like Flynn Rider vibes. He's hot. They attract they Andrew. I mean, objectively, not trying to objectify him, but just saying like he is a very attractive young man. He's a very attractive prince. He is a well-trained actor. He also comes from the stage, which again, I love that they brought in stage actors for this movie, which musicals, I think that we're living in a time where movie musicals is having a renaissance, is having a resurgence. And with that renaissance and with that resurgence, what we're finding is that we need to hire musical theater actors and singers to play musical theater parts. It's the reason why Ariana Grande worked so hard for Glinda. She had a pop career, but the times have been a changing. And it's interesting because, there's a lot of talk about merit. And I feel like the film industry is doing this right. It matters what you can do. It matters, like, can you actually sing this role? Can you perform this music? You know, back in, what was it, 2012, 2013, they did Les Mis, and no hate against Amanda Seyfried, but she didn't have the vocal chops for Les Mis. Her voice was, she sings high, she sings pretty, but in my opinion, she didn't really have that gusto, that she didn't have the vocal range. That's what the word I'm looking for. She didn't have the vocal range to be able to play Cosette. Sorry if you guys love that movie. I do. I have the soundtrack. I enjoy that movie, but it felt very, and we saw a lot of this from the 2010s through 2020, a lot of hiring famous actors, very well-known it girls, to play roles, even though they didn't necessarily have the singing chops. Same thing goes for Emma Watson as Belle. Look, I love Beauty and the Beast. One of my favorite stories, one of my favorite movies. My name's Isabel, and I go by Belle because she's one of my favorite princesses. So, like, I have some passion for her. And Paige O'Hara, who originally played Belle in the movie, was a Broadway actress. And the thing I think that people don't realize is that hiring Broadway and stage actors and actresses is not new. Jodie Benson was a Broadway actress. Um, Leah Michelle, no, not Michelle, Leah Salonga, who does the singing voice for Princess Jasmine, very well known stage, Broadway actress and singer. The voice of Megara, Susan Egan. She played the original Belle in the Broadway musical of Snow White, and she was the voice of Megara. So Disney has a long tradition of hiring Broadway actresses to play the role. So hiring Broadway and stage actors and actresses to play essentially musical theater parts, A plus. Good job. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I think that the other part is that in the stage, and film is starting to do this as well, again, they really don't look at your race as much because that's illegal. You can't discriminate against someone based on race. So everyone who comes into audition, you look at all of them fairly and equally. So literally the best person for the role, the person who has the best voice, that's the person that gets hired for the role. And there's a lot of other things that go into casting as well. You have to think about um the whole entire cast who's carrying the movie. What is the feel that you're trying to bring to this particular iteration of the character? So I don't know how I got onto this side, but yeah, the point was that both Andrew and Rachel are stage actors, and they brought that same talent, that same work ethic to these roles, and they really brought it forward. And as I mentioned earlier, the love story was really strong, and what Andrew brought to Jonathan, aka the prince, is he really brought him to life. I really fell in love with him. And I think that with a lot of these live action movies, you know, not only have they been adding more to the canon of the Disney version of these fairy tales, but the princes have also been getting a little bit of like a facelift. We had the same thing in Cinderella with Kit. You know, he got a name finally. He wasn't just Prince Charming. He was someone. He had goals and he had dreams, and men and boys deserve that as well because fairy tales are for everyone, regardless of your gender and regardless of your race. Period. So, yeah, so those are my thoughts and how I felt about the new Snow White movie. The good, the bad, and the great. I honestly I want to watch the movie again. I genuinely had a good time, and I will say I don't have any children of my own, but I was in a theater filled with kids, and the kids loved it. And at the end of the day, I think that we need to remember that these movies are made for children. I wasn't the biggest fan of Moana 2. I had a lot of critiques and criticism, and my partner who went with me, he told me, he was like, "Hey, this is a movie for kids." And everyone loved Moana 2, and kids loved Moana 2, as they should, because that was for them. So that's the thing, is that you can love the fairy tales, you can love the animated movies, but we don't own these stories. These stories are for everyone. We take what we will from these stories and apply them to our lives. And I think that the lessons of Snow White, of being kind and showing kindness to others, even when they're cruel to you, is such an important lesson, because it's through kindness that Snow White is able to get her happily ever after. So, on that note, remember to be kind and stay true to yourself. And I will see you guys later. Bye.